Ladies and gentlemen, let's get going with the public meeting of the West Haymarket Joint Public Agency for today. I'm here with Regent Tim Clare and Councilman Carl Eskridge, and with myself, we form the board of the West Haymarket Joint Public Agency. Notice of the open meetings law is posted where, Molly? Is that right back there by you, by the door? Okay. Anybody interested in taking note of that is welcome to do so. As part of that, of course, we take public comment at these meetings. We do have a time limitation, so as to be able to give order to the process, individuals are given a total of 5 minutes to speak on specific items listed on the agenda, and all that we ask is that everyone who testifies identifies himself or herself for the public record. With that, gentlemen, unless you have some opening comments of any sort, we'll move ahead to agenda item number 3, which is approval of the minutes from the JPA meeting held on May 27th, 2016. And is there a motion to approve?
I think Tim made it, and I'll second it.
Tim made it. Okay, sorry. Been moved and seconded to approve the minutes. Is there further discussion? Call the roll.
Claire,
Yes.
Beitler,
Yes.
Eskridge,
Yes.
They are approved. Agenda item number 4 is approval of the May and June 2015 payment registers. The material in those registers will be presented to us by Steve Hubka. Welcome, Steve.
Good afternoon. We do have the May and June payment registers. Looking at the May payment register, totals $362,086.29. If you look on the operating budget portion of the report there, total of $266,106. Biggest share of that is payment, monthly payment to the District Energy Corp. $170,000, and there are several payments there for parking. And other than that, there are very small items. The two payments to the university net out to about $6,000. So there's two big numbers there, but they net against each other. And $15,957 of repair and maintenance to the arena. And then if you go down below there, there's a payment for the West Haymarket share of the in-street bike lane, and a few other smaller payments, as well as the payment to PC Sports, make up the payment register for May. Going over to the June payment register, that's a different story as far as amount. It's $8,991,202 for the operating budget, but the vast majority of that is our semi-annual debt payments on the bonds that are outstanding. We also have payments there for the sponsorships and the operating increment to Pinnacle Bank Arena. We also have an $85,000 payment to the university for women's basketball tickets. Mark informs me that next month we'll have men's basketball tickets, also some parking expenses, and the District Energy Corp make up the bulk of the remainder of that. And on the Phase 1 budget down there, we have environmental payments to Alfred Benish and Company. And we have a payment over there, a small payment to Burlington Northern for access to do environmental work on railroad right-of-way, which is a little bit out of the ordinary, and our payment to PC Sports. So that pretty well covers, I think, the June payment register.
Okay, are there questions, Mr. Hubka?
After these payments that have been made specifically in June for the, you say it's semi-annual?
Semi-annual payments,
Yeah.
yes.
I couldn't remember. Where are we sitting financially with respect to our balance? And And are these amounts that we were projecting, are they in the budget? Are they in budget? Where are we at financially?
Yeah, the debt payments are scheduled out for until 2036, so, yeah, to the penny. So, yeah, those are in the budget. We obviously budget exactly what's in the debt schedule, so we are in good shape that way. One of the things I might point out is that the subfloor that you approved at the last meeting, we will be able to cover that within the operating budget without amending it for that particular item. Now, obviously, we have an agenda item coming up here for metal detectors. That's a different story, but we were able to cover the cost of the subfloor within the existing budget. And I think I took a look at our occupation tax receipts through the first 6 months. They're close to 5% over the previous year. So those are tracking well. Not quite as rapid rate of growth as the prior year, but still well above the 2% that we budgeted, yeah.
All right, thank you, Steve. Is there public comment on the payment registers? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve the payment registers?
So moved. Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve. Any further comment? Call the roll.
Claire,
Yes.
Beitler,
Yes?
Eskridge,
Yes.
Okay, the payment registers are approved. And we'll move to number 5, the expenditure reports, again explained to us by Mr. Hupka.
Yes, once again, this is for May and June, reflecting the payments made for both the operating budget and the project budget, reflecting those payments that we discussed on payment registers on the previous agenda item. I don't think there's anything out of the ordinary on any of those, except we did show on, I believe it was the June report, the operating budget does show an open purchase order for that subfloor. But once again, that will be covered out of other room in the budget.
Questions, Mr. Hupka? Is there public comment on agenda item number 5? Seeing none, there appears to be no need for a motion on this particular item, so we'll move to agenda item number 6, which there's been a request to withdraw that by the parties involved, and without objection, it will be withdrawn. I don't know if that's temporary or permanent, but at least for today, it'll be pulled from the agenda as long as that's okay with you, gentlemen. Agenda item number 7, resolution to amend the operating budget. And essentially 7 and 8 should be probably discussed together. Tom, Steve, are you going to tag team us on this one?
I think so.
Do the easy part, I'll just explain that we do need to amend the 15-16 current year operating budget to add $230,000 to capital outlay equipment to purchase metal detectors, for which Tom will discuss the need. And we offset that in the budget by showing revenue from occupation tax in order to pay for that. I think the bigger question is the need. Tom's here to discuss that.
Good afternoon. We put this request before the JPA to look at funding 35 walk-through metal detectors. We've been approached not only by Live Nation, one of our major promoters, who brings us quite a few shows. Back in December, they had sent out an update to us on enhanced security, and they were looking for multiple movement on us on bag size restrictions. They wanted walk-through metal detectors are required. Handheld detectors will not suffice. camera systems with a command center monitoring activity, general staff training with emphasis on appropriate handling of ethnic and religious sensitivities, bomb detection, K-9 unit dogs, and medical teams and ambulances on site during concerts. We did negotiate with them to do handheld wands for some of their shows, particularly some shows in the early part of the year. But as the continuing escalating attacks on soft targets and on large gathering places continues, the urgency of putting a metal detector set of metal detectors into the building becomes more and more urgent. These metal detectors, the difference between that and wanding a crowd, the metal detectors are more sensitive. The throughput and the ability to put more people into the building quickly and still do a thorough check is much more efficient with these metal detectors. They have magnetic coils on both sides, so as a person walks through, a series of lights will show where to look if there is some sort of heavy metal or dense metal type of material from their ankles all the way to the top of their heads. The standard in the NBA, the standard in the NHL, certainly many of the NFL games. We saw it on the RNC and DNC conventions this week. More and more of these events are moving towards having walk-through metal detectors to provide that level of safety and security for our patrons. The metal detectors are not an end-all type of a solution. They're certainly one part of a heavy solution. We do some other security measures that help us to observe the crowd before and during and after a show. We will also continue to look at bollards. The arena right now has an extensive series of closed-circuit cameras that we do review crowds as they come in and out. But taken all together, it does create a much safer environment for our patrons and for our artists. And one of the main reasons that we look at this is, as we see the requirements come from Live Nation, we just saw that this week AEG Live, another large promoter that we get many shows from, is putting these metal detectors in all of their Midwest leased venues. And what will happen if we don't do this and don't stay current with keeping the security level is we'll lose shows. And the amount of revenue that we can get from a single show, overall revenue that drops to the bottom line, is about the cost of the set of metal detectors. So it's an important piece. It's unfortunate that the world is in a situation where this type of security has to happen. It's not as extensive as a TSA search, but it certainly moves towards that. And the idea is not only to keep the artists and the promoters happy, but to provide the public a certain level of security so they feel comfortable coming to an event, bringing their families to an event, and they know that this enhanced level of security gives them confidence that they can attend an event and be safe at our venue.
Where will you set these up?
These will set up, the 35 that we've looked at, the two main entrances into the building are the southeast lobby. It's on the event floor. It's just to the southeast of the building. There's a series of doors there. We'll also put some in the ticket office, which is just to the southwest of the main lobby. We'll also put them at the northeast entrance because we get probably 20 to 30% of our audience coming up the ramp and coming in the northeast entrance from the festival space. They'll also go backstage where the artists or athletes or whoever's coming through will go through those detections there. And there is staff entrances, and so we'll be checking staff. So this isn't just patrons, it's checking all of the different, anyone who really comes into the building will go through that security check. It takes a bit longer, but at the end of the day, I think the worth is to have the confidence that we have at least done that due diligence and made that check so that someone isn't carrying in any large weapons, any large explosives, or personal handguns at that point.
Will those be outside the entrance of the arena, or will they be inside the arena before you go up to your
We'll have both situations. In weather-appropriate times, we have already started to, as a pre-check, before we send people in to get their tickets scanned, we have started to set up a perimeter in the southeast plaza outside of the arena. So these metal detectors will work either on battery, they'll work inside or outside, cold or wet. They're made to handle that. Probably more often than not, if in appropriate weather, we'll try to do that check outside and then queue the people up to the doors so that they can get their ticket scanned and then appropriately greeted and sent on to their seating at that point. Some of the areas, the backstage areas, will be inside. That'll always be an inside type of situation because of the way the back end is configured. And the staff entrance will always be an inside metal check also.
Talk about training that the people that will be administering these security areas, that what sort of training will they be getting, and how important that is to not only making sure that it's safe, but also getting people through in a timely fashion. There's a significant amount of training that comes with it, and certainly a learning curve that comes with these. The idea, the pricing that we have estimated has training that goes with it, and there are multiple scenarios for how you arrange your metal detectors, how you do the bag checks that are with it. There's always someone called a pacer out front that communicates with the crowd, gets them moving through at the right pace, sets them up so that a cell phone or a key are in the hands or go into a basket. And then as they look at the lighting, the lights on the outside of the metal, or the security side of the metal detector, they'll see certain different patterns, or they'll see where something lights up, and then they have to go back and either through a wand or through a physical check see what that is that sets it off, whether it's a phone, whether it's a cigarette case, or if it's a weapon. And they need to know how to handle that, how to deal with those customers as they come through. And so training is a huge part of this, and it does increase costs. You know, there's some change of cost from hand wanding to being able to do the metal detectors. Some of those same people are doing the same sort of work, but there's probably some extra cost on each show to have a trained staff that's there to make sure that people don't come through too fast, that an appropriate job is done, but that still that you are able to move people in and get them there on time. Yes, Carl.
Pinewood Bowl, gonna be doing it there as well?
We were asked for the first time during the Bob Dylan show to wand the patrons coming through. They asked for a metal detector, and since we didn't have the walkthroughs, we did hand wands for the Bob Dylan show recently. Tonight's show, we aren't wanding. We will see that start to become a reality also. These units are portable, and we'll have enough that we can move them out to the bowl and queue through. It's probably about 4 that would do the bowl out there and keep the patrons moving at an appropriate level. We'd also be able to use them in the festival space. We recently did Star City Pride, and it was very close after the tragedy and massacre in Orlando. And so we had extra security there that day doing wanding and doing some pat downs. We had also police helping us watch the perimeters. So those type of situations, especially with what may be a high risk event, these units will be able to be brought out and used in those situations.
So Steve, remind us how this is paid for.
This is paid for out of JPA funds. It's part of the operating budget. It's possible that we'll capitalize these items and depreciate them so that on JPA income, it won't be the full cost of them. It'll be a depreciated cost over a little longer period of time, but it will not impact the bottom line of the arena operations themselves. It's a capital type expense.
What's the life expectancy of one of these?
The warranty is a 2-year warranty. We're looking into what the longer one is. The expectation is they're a 5 to 10 year type of a product. And if they're not moved a lot, and these won't be moved tremendously, they should even have a longer life. We'll just see what technology changes come along also. Plus, I want to make it clear that these would be bid through city purchasing. So it's not, there's several companies that can provide these, and so we'll be able to put a good package together.
Well, sure appreciate this. This is, it's in addition to trying to attract good shows and trying to make the ends meet and put on a show for the people that are attending, it's also now another added element to your job of making sure that all this is done in a safe and timely fashion.
There's different things that keep us awake at night, and security, as we see this escalating violence, security is one of the things that that you do worry about, and this does raise our level of overall security. It doesn't fix everything, but it does raise our level of security.
Currently, with regard to the handheld devices, are you using those at some events, at all events? What kind of usage pattern have you established currently?
It's a mixed use, particularly right now. Major concerts are the ones who are probably asking for it most often.
So the handheld devices you're using now, when asked by performers and
Yes.
companies,
Yeah, Live Nation in particular, the first show was, and I'm drawing a blank on my artist that came in February, but that was the first show after Live Nation came out, and that was right after the Paris attacks and required walk-through metal detectors. We were able to negotiate the handhelds, so that was what they wanted to see. Prior to that, Motley Crue, we had used it. We used them at Carrie Underwood, so that these different promoters are looking for their artist, and it's sometimes driven by the promoter, it's sometimes driven by the artist's concern. Those are the type of events that we'll see. We have not used them for UNL athletics at this point, and that's still a point of discussion, and we're looking through that and seeing where the Big Ten lands or where the NCAA lands. We have an upcoming NBA preseason game in October. They asked about walk-through metal detectors. We indicated that we don't have them. We're with the handhelds. They were willing to work with us, hoping that we would still work through towards the walkthroughs, because on the whole, the NBA has a metal detector requirement across all their venues. And there are some events that we don't. We recently had a Jehovah's Witness 3-day event where metal detectors or security wasn't in place. Some of the things that, we have Cirque du Soleil tonight, and they did not require a walkthrough yet. We'll see, I think, that change more often to where they request it, but there's still some variance on who requests that.
And the Big Ten does not have that requirement as of yet.
They do not have the requirement as of now. They're going to push that back, I think, to the individual universities to make that choice, and they haven't mandated how they want to handle that as of this time.
should we assume that with regard to this new equipment, should we get it, that you would follow the same pattern that you followed with regard to usage as it relates to demand for usage?
Yes, I think that we wouldn't put it in place and use it for every event. I think it would be, you would do some risk assessment with events. You would do certainly work with the promoter or the artist on what they want to see. And so it would be a mixed use, not in place all the time. But my sense is that it would, over time, probably really roll towards a more often use than not. But yeah, we would
Okay.
keep the same pattern in place.
And the capital costs are the same one way or the other, but the operating costs will change depending on changing patterns.
Correct. And, we may just do spot checks. Obviously, the less you use them, the less the capital costs really come in, or at least the operational cost for us is in the manpower that goes with them. Once they're purchased, the power draw and the, everything else that goes with it should well be covered. But the amount of security we would put in place to man those, that would be the variable. And
what's your best guess as to the level of usage in the upcoming fiscal year? How much are you expecting operating costs to increase?
We would see somewhere between the estimates that we've seen we were at a recent conference with SMG and looking at this across the board on all their venues, and depending on what staffing model you use and the level of training for the folks, somewhere between $1,500 and $4,000 additional labor that would have to be put into place to put these into use.
Per game?
like
Per
a
event.
concert, yeah. And again, it somewhat varies with the pattern of how people arrive and how many you put into place. If you know that it's a late arriving crowd, maybe you don't staff them all to begin with, and you expand your staff as you go so you can index your staffing somewhat. But I think a conservative guess at 12 to 14 shows at that 1,500 to 4,000 per show, you're at least looking at $40,000 in additional costs. What we would try to do as operators then is work back and try to make those what we would call show costs, so that extra labor becomes part of another expense to the show, and that we don't have to sustain all of that. And we're seeing, mixed response on how the shows want to respond as far as making that a show cost. But obviously, it's in our best interest as the operator, and certainly the best interest of the city, to try to share those costs back with our partners and our artists and event producers, so that it's a fair and equitable sort of sharing of those expenses and not all on our side.
Really a question for Steve. The two resolutions before us are for an expenditure of $230,000. Can't imagine you can get these for that. So what's the $230,000?
Well, it's an estimate of 35 times 6,500 each. It comes up, I think, to 225 or 227,000. Just a few $1,000 leeway there.
And Carl, that pricing includes not just the unit, but shipping, training, so it should be a pretty inclusive, it should be a top-end number that's 65.
And these will be bid. We'll get those. These will be bid.
Yes,
So we'll
correct.
find out exactly what that will
Right.
be later. Okay.
Mhm.
Tom, how would you describe tolerance levels to date with people being scanned by security devices?
We get a wide range of responses. Some people, and part of kind of what we train, and I've gone out and done some of the wanding. Part of the routine of wanding someone is to have that kind of a banter, kind of a conversation going with them while you're doing this. Some people respond very well and say, "Thank you, we understand, we certainly know what's going on." Some people do push back. We've had some of the crowds at basketball where we've asked people to open their coats just so that we can visually check to see if there's anything around their waist or any long guns or anything like that, and they're not appreciative of it. So I think it's a learned response. It's going to be something that, we all probably didn't like TSA when it started, but now it just becomes kind of part of what we do. And I hate to make it a negative. Again, this is still a positive. I think this is still something that, hopefully people look at and respond to, prepare for. Don't bring your extra big ring of keys, bring, the smaller set, and understand that it's, done for their safety and for the safety of others.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Thank you both.
Thank you.
Is there public comment on item number 7? Seeing none, is there a motion with regard to item number 7?
So moved. Second.
Been moved and seconded to, I assume, approve WH 16-8.
Yes.
Further discussion? Seeing none, call the roll.
Claire,
Yes.
Beitler,
Yes.
Eskridge.
Yes.
Resolution is adopted. Agenda item number 8, WH 16-9, the related one, which we've already had a discussion on. I guess I might ask whether there's any public comment on that item number 8. Seeing none, is there a motion to approve resolution WH 16-9?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion? Call the roll.
Claire,
Yes.
Beitler,
Yes.
Eskridge.
Yes.
Motion is adopted. Agenda item number 9, without objection, the next meeting date will be Thursday, August 25th, 2016, at 3:30 PM in the City County Building, Bill Luxford Studio, first floor. Are we good with that? All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
Moved and seconded to adjourn, call the roll.
Claire,
Yes.
Beitler,
Yes,
Eskridge.
Yes.
we are adjourned.